this story and Neil's story is really one of perseverance, never giving up, going ahead in the face of all sorts of adversity. What were some of your favorite traits about Neil?
I mean, a lot of my favorite traits are like traits that I wouldn't, emulate in my own life, just his like raw tenacity and an inability to take no for an answer. I mean, I found that incredibly admirable, although personally terrifying. So like that was always a really sort of fun thing to play because it was so different from myself. And I just love that he could just charm anyone into anything essentially, and if you spend enough time with him, you just couldn't help but be pulled into his magnetism. Even if you despised him, you're like, that guy, there's something about him, and that's a really cool thing to try to tap into.
So, how much did you know about Casablanca, Neil, the backstory before you got cast in this role?
Nothing. I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I maybe heard the word Casablanca as a record company, but of course I knew the music that came out of it. A lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it. And so no, it was all completely new and fresh story to me. And I think a lot of the audience will kind of be coming from that same place too. And so there's not a lot of expectations, and the movie definitely takes you on some unexpected turns. And then for the people that do know Casablanca, they think it's more of they think they know, but they don't really know.
So we go through different phases of Neil's life at both personally and professionally. What do you think his biggest consistent obstacle was throughout the course of his journey?
Yeah, I think his biggest, well, I think one of his biggest obstacles was himself and his own sort of, ambition for success, driving him away from relationships in his life and business relationships. But I think his other sort of biggest, adversary was time, because he was always 10 steps ahead of everyone else. Like he knew Kiss and Donna Summer were going to be something, and nobody couldn't get anybody on board with him, but he could feel that there was something there, and it just took time to get everybody else to catch up with him. And that was kind of the sort of hallmark of his short life. And eventually time was against him because he died far too young. So definitely many of our biggest adversary is time, but definitely for him.
Sure. So music obviously is centered to this film. What were some of the most interesting tidbits that you learned, or some of the backstories about some of these artists and their connection?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize how much of a hand he had in creating some of these iconic numbers, from like Donna Summer's Love to Love You, which was always this like little 3-minute demo, and he created it into like a 19 something minute, sex song. And the way that he had to kind of coach her into bringing something out of herself. I mean, it's this very difficult scene to watch because you see this young woman who's very uncomfortable, in that with that version of herself being forced to become a sex symbol. And I think that was really interesting. And he really, how he discovered Bill Withers and helped shape, the Isley Brothers, and just the hand that he had in the creation of this music, as opposed to just discovering the artist and saying go make it. He was very much hands-on and very much part of their process. And he always said that the artists became like family to him, and taking them into his home and his life, and nurture them until they could become this big, the best part, version of themselves.
So obviously you have a musical background and this involves music, but
Yeah.
except for a small portion, you largely got to skip that part and sort of direct. So what is that experience like for you, being involved in something that is so musical, but you're sort of removed from it in a way?
I know. They're like, so how much do you sing? I'm like, well, I sing a little bit, but it's not, I'm not like the doing the 11 o'clock number or anything thing like that. It's nice actually. Like it feels it feels like I can still have that part of my, skill set, utilized, but it's not the thing that I'm leaning on. And earlier in my career, I was always like, I don't want to be seen as the guy that just does musicals, and all people think of as, oh, he sings. I wanted to kind of, be more well-rounded in people's, minds. And I think this is kind of the perfect composition of all of my, things that I can do. And as I've gotten older, I've really learned to like not worry about that. Like you do things that make you happy. If it's a musical, great. If it's not, whatever. Like if you're having a good time and doing something that you love, then you're winning.
So Neil obviously utilized some unconventional business practices. Do you think his approach could work in this current era?
No, are you kidding me? Neil would have been canceled like before the first record came out. No, I mean it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Like, and and it wasn't like, there were no, he didn't put out a hit on anybody, there wasn't like crazy, really weird stuff happening. But they had payola. They had, people they had favors, and he owed so much money, and he gambled, and he lied. Like he pulled out every stop to get to where he needed to go, and luckily most things weren't being recorded back then, so he could get away with it. And if you have enough money, or you pretend to have enough money, then you can usually kind of sweep things under the rug. And he was so tenacious that he pushed through it until he became successful. And none of it ever really caught up to him until it did, and he
Yeah. So, in
died.
wrapping up, lots of great music from the artist in Casablanca. What is one of your favorites that is from the catalog of Buddha or Casablanca?
Oof. There's a bunch, but like if I'm talking about like the originals, like give me, Bill Withers all day long. Like give me Ain't No Sunshine and Lean on Me. I remember when we were doing at the Ain't No Sunshine section, it was like a montage. And so we had it going for like 4 days, and it never got old, and it just kept playing on repeat because we knew the song was going to be happening during this moment. And so we just had it on repeat when we were like, I love the song, and I'm mad about it. So that's probably like one of my favorites.